Joanna's death was ruled a suicide. Her family believes her husband, Pastor Mark Lewis, was involved.
I know that someone took her life. I know that.
Within 24 hours of finding Joanna dead, Mark called another woman, Sarah Nottingham.
He was crying and he asked me if I had heard what happened, and I told him yes.
So his wife had just died.
Yes. He
calls an attractive former church member.
Yeah.
He started, eventually, a relationship with you.
Yes.
Sarah declined ABC 10's interview request for this series, but back in 2014, she spoke with us as well as ABC's 2020, saying she and Mark began dating a year after Joanna died. But as they dated, Sarah discovered Mark texting photos to other women.
It really makes me sick to my stomach.
Including Desiree Nye, records show, then a church member, and a minor.
There was over 80 of them, of just him, that were with either no shirt on or no pants on or inappropriate like that.
Sarah broke up with him. His response?
I was basically told that that then if I wasn't with him, I've created a monster, and he would stop at nothing.
Lieutenant Chris Lechuga, then a detective with Vacaville Police, outlines what followed: 20 days of escalating threats.
It became clear that she had been living in terror for those 20 days.
Sarah's car vandalized, her work bombarded with calls. And in a request for a domestic violence restraining order, Sarah said Mark called a crisis hotline, claiming she was suicidal after she left him.
I believe that he definitely wanted to kill me.
Joanna's family says they saw the same pattern.
He would call 20, 30 times.
They slashed the tires on our car.
That pattern, they say, became increasingly dangerous. For Sarah, it came in the form of a firebomb.
All of us were asleep. It was 3:30 in the morning.
A Molotov cocktail was thrown through a bedroom window.
ABC 10 repeatedly reached out to Mark. We called, texted, emailed, and sent letters for months. He never responded. But back then, Mark denied these actions.
These are pretty serious allegations.
Very
Are you pretty much
serious,
denying them?
Well, yeah, denying what they say is I'm involved with.
With Sarah's case, 2 investigations were launched, one into the Molotov cocktail.
I was contacted to take lead on the investigation.
And another on Mark's handling of church funds.
And so I was tasked with trying to figure out how Mr. Lewis came up with $500,000 to be able to bail out of jail.
The deeper they dug, the more they unearthed about Mark.
He was known in the community as being a drug user.
Meth and a gun were found on church property, police reports state. Mark denied these findings back then.
They did not find any drugs. They did not find it. And the gun they found was someone here on the property's gun that they just took.
Mark also brought ex-cons into the church.
The people that we talked to had been transient in and out of jail.
Mark paid them to commit crimes, court records show, including the firebombing of Sarah's house. Kristen Broyles was one of those arrested.
He should be the one sitting here and not me.
Records also show the church was bleeding money after Mark took over its finances.
What happened? You know, it's now $80,000, $90,000 in the red.
I mean, put simply, do you believe Mark used the church for personal enrichment?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The Solano County District Attorney charged Mark with multiple felonies, including grand theft by embezzlement and false financial statements, court filings show. But that case was halted.
My case, unfortunately, was very technical. Sarah's case was very straightforward. Lots of evidence.
Vacaville police put Mark in prison for 8 years, guilty of stalking and arson.
I really wanted justice for Sarah.
And the Hunter family thought, finally, there might be justice for Joanna too.
I thought, but now this is going to help Joanna's situation.
It did help. Investigators say Joanna's name surfaced again and again.
There were certainly people that came forward during our investigation of Mark Lewis who shared an opinion that he was somehow involved in Joanna Lewis's death.
And questions swirled about her death.
There's a lot of questions, not only surrounding her death, but also in her life. And there's a lot of questions of how Mark Lewis fit into that.
But it wasn't these investigators' job to answer these questions. That responsibility laid on the Solano County Sheriff's Office. They were the ones who were called out to the scene of her death in 2011. And as Mark came under more scrutiny, they reopened her case in 2014.
If someone is coming to us saying they think we missed something, we're not afraid of being proven wrong. And so we're willing to reopen those cases. And in 2014, there was over a dozen additional witnesses that were spoken to, members of the church, members of the family.
She'd come to church with maybe a sling around her neck, and he said she was sick, and she wasn't. He had beat her up.
There was stuff that I just said, this, it's just kind of weird, The whole story's not being told.
Even Desiree Nye expressed concerns about Joanna's case.
He was like, well, I'm a man with 2 strikes from the past, and I have a dead wife in my closet, and nothing happens to me.
Did your office ever speak with Mark?
I believe we attempted to, but because he was facing charges, I don't believe his attorney allowed us to speak to him.
How can your agency make a determination when kind of the prime suspect was never one of those people that
Well, he was spoken to in 2011 at the scene of the death. He was spoken to that day.
But Mark has not been interviewed again. And as we covered earlier in this story, Joanna's family and some experts believe the sheriff's office failed to investigate that day.
No sheriff's investigators were called out, no family members were interviewed, no one checked to see if there had been a history of domestic violence. I'm just curious what explanation the sheriff's office has and if there was a proper investigation done.
Sure, there absolutely was a proper investigation done. All of our deputies are investigators. They're investigating a scene. We don't necessarily need a full-time detective. All of our deputy sheriffs are capable of conducting a thorough investigation.
He stands by the deputy's decision that day.
It did not require an investigation's call-out.
Joanna's suicide note, he says, was legitimate.
So the fact that this note was there, a diary and a journal was essentially located, and the handwriting matched.
ABC 10 reviewed these journal entries in the sheriff's report. They have no dates, so it's unclear when Joanna wrote them. In them, she apologized to multiple people, including Mark and her family. To someone with the initials FBC, she wrote, "Now he's officially single. You won." And "Suicide game? Not anymore, you say."
The handwriting examiner from the Department of Justice described the journal writings as someone who was very depressed, very sad.
But Joanna's family says the suicide game was Mark's tactic, not hers.
I'm going to kill myself if you don't do this. I have a gun. He was the one who was playing the suicide game to manipulate her.
Investigators determined the journal's handwriting matched the note, but her family's focus is on what it said: take care of the dogs.
I said, that's not a suicide note. She knew her dad had asthma and she wasn't going to bring them.
And where it was found, an open suitcase.
She was coming home.
Why did your agency not consider the possibility that Joanna was trying to leave Mark?
The consideration that she was leaving or not leaving didn't change the circumstances of which she was found. So the fact that there was a suitcase, I believe it was near the closet, it wasn't necessarily on the bed, it was off to the side near a closet in which a note was found, and it was deemed to be a suicide note. And that, in conjunction with the way her body was found, without any signs of foul play, is what helped to determine that it was a suicide.
But experts like David Kropp, a retired detective sergeant, point to Mark's alibi: hours of basketball with gaps where he returned home.
That on its face is evidence of foul play.
And a body that suggests Joanna had been dead for hours.
Did your agency account for the gap in his alibi?
I do know he was left alone at their house while she was there, but again, there is no indication or evidence on her body, no defensive wounds.
Joanna's brother disagrees. He says he saw her body the day after she died.
You know, she had injuries to her neck, and then she had defensive wounds on her hands.
As a firefighter, he's trained to identify injuries from self-defense.
And she had bruising to the side of her body. And then in the pubic area, you could tell that there had been trauma.
I don't know what he saw, so I can't necessarily dispute that, but I can say at the investigation and at the examination following her death, there were no signs of defensive injuries like that.
Therefore, no reason for an internal autopsy, a call made by Dr. Susan Hogan, the Solano County coroner. Years later, Hogan's work was deeply criticized. A judge wrote that there was concern about her ability to do her job and her tendency to quickly form conclusions.
Why has the Sheriff's Department continued to trust Dr. Hogan's report and her cause of death for Joanna?
This case had nothing to do with her separation. And then in 2014, again, as part of quality assurance and the new investigation, her work was sent to an outside forensic pathologist.
The review by a Southern California forensic pathologist agreed that Joanna died by hanging and suicide.
That he agreed, he did not believe any mistakes were done, he would not have done anything differently.
The Solano County Sheriff's Office closed their 2014 investigation, determining again Joanna died by suicide.
And if we really want to reopen this, one thing has to happen: being willing to admit it went wrong the first time.
Joe and David Kropp both question the Sheriff's Office continued defense of their investigation, and they think they know why.
We believe that somebody in the Sheriff's Department was attached somehow to that church.
ABC 10 found that's true.
So you were a member of the Solano County Sheriff's Office and the church at the same time?
Correct.
But Daryl Snedeker, now retired, says he had no involvement in the investigation of Joanna. Not in 2011, not when it was reopened.
You know, I want the family to know that I would not have created a conflict of interest.
From the moment he joined the church, he says he was wary.
I would categorize it as cult-like. If it not been for my first wife, I would have not gone back the first or second time I went there.
His wife was battling terminal cancer. He says the church kept her going.
She loved the church, she loved the message, she loved some of the people, she loved Miss Joanna. She loved her.
What were your thoughts, on Joanna?
Poor thing, just poor thing.
Pastor Mark's behavior, he said, was full of red flags.
There's no boundaries with this guy.
Do you think it was a suicide? The family thinks it was a homicide.
I don't know. I think he's capable of anything, to be honest with you. Proving it in the court of law is one thing, and getting all the facts from an environment like that church, I don't even know if that's possible. I don't even know if that's possible because of the grip he had on some people.
If Mark drove her to suicide,
abuse and mistreatment that lead to a suicide, unfortunately, does not constitute violation of the law in California, right?
But if Mark did kill her...
If he took her life, I wanted his ass to hang, yeah. If I would have found out anything, I would have went to the sheriff's office and screamed at the top of my lungs, like I did later on.
Later on, Snedeker said he did just that when a former church member came to him claiming he was buying narcotics for Pastor Mark.
And then I started turning over all that information to our narcotics unit, and they started to work a case on him. I don't know where that case ever went.
And Joanna's family feels there's been no conclusion for her case either.
And they were just going through the motions, and they were doing it to cover themselves. So there was no investigation.
I completely disagree. We've opened this every time we've been approached. We've had no problem reopening this case.
Including reopening it again in 2024 when ABC 10 was investigating.
And was Mark spoken to this last time that you opened the investigation?
No.
Why not?
I don't know. I don't have that answer.
They closed it with the same conclusion.
I think it's a captivating story, but at this point, it is a story, it is an idea, there is no evidence to support that.
But experts say this is no story.
This is a clear homicide case.
New evidence is staring them in the face.
But what was also at that crime scene was a dock rope. It is absolutely a perfect outline of a rope ligature applied to her neck, not the bathrobe sash.
That's next on Hidden Homicides.